Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into advanced micro devices, AMD.
And we're going to unpack their recent performance, their big strategic bets, and try to figure out what might be next for them.
Exactly. We've got the financials, stock data, earnings call details, the whole works. Our mission is simple. Give you the clearest possible picture.
And hopefully pull out some interesting nuggets along the way. There's definitely some impressive growth, but also, some complexities with valuation and strategy.
Okay, let's get started. The basics first. Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, global semiconductor player founded way back in '69.
Based in Santa Clara, California, and Dr. Lisa Su is at the helm as CEO.
Right. So to really understand where they are now, we need to look at the numbers, their latest financials.
Absolutely. The second quarter of 2025 results were quite strong in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, first thing that jumps out is that record revenue,
Oh,
$7.7 billion.
that's a big number. And it's up 32% from last year.
32%. And up 3% even from the previous quarter, so solid momentum.
And what really caught my eye looking at their operational health was the free cash flow. Also a record,
How much was that?
$1.2 billion in Q2. That's, the actual cash they're generating after covering expenses. It's a strong signal.
Definitely. And they seem pretty optimistic looking ahead, right? The Q3 outlook.
Yeah, they're targeting around $8.7 billion for Q3 revenue. That would be roughly 28% growth year over year. So continued strong growth expected.
Okay, but let's talk about the gross margin for Q2. It came in at 43%, which sounds okay, but there's a story there.
There absolutely is. You have to factor in that $800 million inventory write-down.
Which is tied to those data center AI export controls we've heard about. Geopolitics hitting the balance sheet.
Exactly. So if you kind of mentally pull that charge out, the non-GAAP gross margin paints a different picture,
What would that have been?
around 54%. And what's important there is that it marks their sixth straight quarter of year-over-year expansion in that non-GAAP margin.
Right, so the underlying profitability trend looks healthier than the headline number suggests.
Now, operating expenses did go up to $2.4 billion.
Okay.
But that reflects them really pushing on, go-to-market efforts and, crucially, investing heavily in AI R&D. It's a strategic spend.
So pulling it all together, what's the takeaway from these Q2 financials? It sounds like a company that's, growing strongly despite some real headwinds.
I think that's fair.
Yep.
It shows resilience, They're navigating those export issues, but the core business, especially in certain areas, is really firing. And they're clearly investing for the future, particularly AI.
Okay, so that's the internal view. How's our market seeing all this? Let's switch gears to the stock performance and how investors are valuing AMD.
Right. So the stock price. As of, August 5th, 2025, macro trends had the closing price at $174.55.
Got it. Though I think I saw slightly different numbers elsewhere.
Yeah, you often do, depending on the exact source and time. TradingView might have shown like $162.56 or $174.31 around the same time. It fluctuates, but that gives you the ballpark. It's a significant valuation.
I looked back at the history. This was kind of amazing. If you had put $1,000 into AMD at their IPO,
Way back when, 1984.
yeah, that $1,000 would be worth about 10,496 census today.
Wow. So roughly a 10x return over, 41 years?
Yep. Comes out to about a 6.14% compound annual growth rate. Not bad for the long haul.
Definitely not. More recently, though, it's been a bit more of a roller coaster, right? What were the highs and lows?
Right. The all-time high close was back in March 2024, depending on the source, either $211.38 or maybe $227.30.
Wow.
And the 52-week range. High of $182.50, but a low of $76.48.
That's a pretty wide swing within just 1 year. Tells you something about the volatility.
Yeah, absolutely. And
That-
speaking of valuation metrics, the PE ratio, this is where it gets interesting.
Always tricky with high growth tech. What are the numbers?
Well, MacroTrends had it at 60.54 around August 5th, but TradingView reported it as 129.59.
Whoa, that's a huge difference.
Right. And the PE ratio is supposed to help you figure out if a stock is over or undervalued based on earnings. Such a wide range really highlights how much future expectation is baked into AMD's price.
It suggests investors are betting heavily on future growth, especially from AI, rather than just current profitability.
Makes sense. And important note for investors, AMD doesn't currently pay dividends.
Nope. Typical for a company in their growth phase. They're reinvesting profits back into the business, R&D, expansion.
Which brings us to what the analysts think. What's the consensus there?
It leans positive. Out of 44 analysts covering this stock, the consensus seems to be a BUY. The average price target is around $156.97.
Okay, but that average target is actually below the recent trading price we mentioned.
Exactly, and that ties into the conflicting fair value estimates you see. Some sources, like Simply Walcent, actually peg the fair value lower, around $154, suggesting it's overvalued right now.
But then you have others.
Right, like some community contributors who are way more bullish, seeing fair value up near like $290.
It really shows you how subjective valuing these kinds of companies can be. Different models, different assumptions about future growth.
Totally. It forces you, as an investor, to really dig into why people have such different views.
And just quickly on volatility, we mentioned the wide 52-week range. The beta is 1.97.
Which basically means the stock tends to be almost twice as volatile as the overall market. Big swings are kind of the norm.
Yeah, and wrinkly price movement around 5.9%. So I guess the takeaway here is valuing AMD is complex, lots of differing opinions, lots of focus on future potential. You really need to weigh the various metrics and narratives.
Couldn't agree more. You need the full context.
Okay, let's get into that context then. Let's break down AMD's business segment by segment. Where's the growth coming from? What are the key strategies? Starting with the big one, data center.
Right. Data center is definitely a huge focus, especially with AI. In Q2 2025, that segment brought in $3.2 billion in revenue.
How's that compare to last year?
That's up a healthy 14% year over year, and a lot of that was driven by their EPYC server CPUs.
Those are the chips powering cloud servers, big enterprise systems.
Exactly. Demand's been really strong there for both traditional stuff and increasingly for AI workloads too. They actually hit record sales for cloud and enterprise CPUs in Q2.
Wow. And didn't they mention something about market share gains?
Yeah, get this. It was their 33rd consecutive quarter of year-over-year share gains in server CPUs. That's over 8 years of consistently taking share. Pretty incredible streak.
Seriously impressive. But okay, the really hot topic in data center is AI accelerators, right? They're instinct GPUs.
Absolutely. And there's a big transition happening there. They had the MI308, but that got hit by those U.S. export restrictions to China.
Right. So they mentioned no revenue expected from MI308 in Q3 guidance while licenses are under review.
Correct. The focus now is shifting squarely to the next generation, the MI350 series accelerators.
And the news there sounded pretty positive.
Very positive. First, volume production started ahead of schedule back in June, and they expect a really steep production ramp in the second half of this year.
Okay, good momentum. How does it stack up against the competition, namely NVIDIA?
Well, according to AMD, the MI355, a key part of that series, it matches or exceeds NVIDIA's B200 in important AI training and inference tasks.
Okay.
And they claim it delivers comparable performance to NVIDIA's bigger GB200 system for certain workloads, but at a significantly lower cost and complexity.
Low cost and complexity is a big deal for data centers.
Huge deal. And they specifically called out inference performance, saying the MI355 delivers up to 40% more tokens per dollar. Basically more AI output for your money.
That's a compelling pitch. What about the software side? That's always been NVIDIA's big advantage.
They're working hard on that. They highlighted improvements in their ROCm7 software stack, including things like a developer cloud and better support for standard AI frameworks. The goal is making it easier for developers to actually use AMD GPUs effectively.
Makes sense. You need the whole ecosystem. And they're already looking beyond the MI350, right?
Oh yeah. They're talking up the MI400 series, expected in 2026, calling them the most advanced GPUs we've ever built.
Ambitious.
And they also introduced something called Helios, which sounds like a full rack-scale AI platform designed for the absolute toughest AI jobs. They're promising up to a 10x performance jump compared to the current generation.
10 times. That could really change the game for training massive AI models.
That's the idea. It all feeds into their stated ambition, scaling the AI business to tens of billions of dollars in annual revenue. It's a huge target.
And they also mentioned sovereign AI, countries building their own AI infrastructure.
Yeah, they see that as an additional opportunity. Like a recent collaboration with Humane, that AI pin company, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, more places wanting dedicated AI compute.
Okay, wow. So massive push in data center AI. What about the other parts of the business? Client and gaming.
That segment actually had a really strong Q2 as well. Revenue was $3.6 billion.
Which is up?
A massive 69% year over year. 69%.
Whoa, what drove that?
Couple of things. On the client side, that's PCs. Laptops, they had record desktop CPU sales. Think Ryzen 9000 series, the X3D gaming chips. Those are apparently flying off the shelf.
Right, those often top the bestseller lists online.
Exactly. And strong demand for laptops using their chips, too, especially now with the new Ryzen AI 300 series hitting the premium market. Those have dedicated AI processors built in.
Okay, so client is strong. What about gaming, GPUs, and consoles?
Also, strong demand reported for their latest Radeon 9000 series graphics cards. But the really big news was on the console front.
Ah, yeah, the custom chip deals.
Right. They announced a new multi-year deal with Microsoft to supply custom silicon for future Xbox devices.
Securing the next generation, that's huge.
Definitely. And they also mentioned deepening their partnership with Sony Think PlayStation on something called Project Amethyst, which uses machine learning for more immersive gaming. So they're really locking in their position in the console market for years to come.
Okay, strong resurgence in client and gaming. That leaves the embedded segment. How's that looking?
Embedded is sort of the steady foundation. Revenue in Q2 was $824 million. That was actually down 4% year over year, but flat compared to the previous quarter.
So not the explosive growth of the other segments, but stabilizing.
Exactly. They said demand is recovering just kind of gradually. They expect it to return to sequential growth in the second half of 2025.
And what kind of applications are we talking about in embedded?
Think industrial, automotive, communications, high-value stuff. They mentioned, for example, their Versal chips being used in Bosch's next-gen robotaxi platforms.
Okay, so critical infrastructure type applications.
Right, stuff that needs real-time processing, security. And they highlighted strong design win momentum, basically, getting their chips designed into future products. They're on track to surpass $14 billion in design wins this year.
Which suggests good future revenue locked in for that segment.
Precisely. It provides a solid, often long-term base for the company.
Okay. So if we zoom out and look at all three segments, data center, client gaming, embedded, what's the overall strategic picture?
It looks like a strategy of balanced growth, but with a very clear, heavy bet on AI as the main future engine via the data center segment.
All right. AI is the accelerator, but the traditional CPU markets in PCs and servers are still performing really well, providing the current foundation.
Exactly. And the embedded business, while recovering more slowly, offers diversification and those long-term, sticky revenues. It's a multi-pronged approach.
All right, well, that brings us towards the end of this deep dive on AMD. We set out to give you that comprehensive, informed view, cutting through some of the noise.
Yeah, hopefully we've done that. We've covered the strong Q2 financials, record revenue, record cash flow, even with that inventory write-down impacting the margins.
We definitely hit that ambitious AI roadmap, the MI350 shipping now, the MI400 coming, that Helios platform. They're clearly aiming high.
And we saw the continued strength in their core CPU businesses, both client and server, with those impressive market share gains and the resurgence in gaming, plus those key console wins.
But it's not all smooth sailing, right? We have to acknowledge the impact of those export controls, the volatility in the stock, and those really varied views on valuation from analysts.
Absolutely. It underscores just how dynamic the semiconductor industry is. Things change fast, and valuation clearly reflects massive expectations, especially around AI success.
So let's leave our listeners with something to think about, a final provocative thought.
Okay.
Considering everything we've discussed, AMD's huge push in AI, their goal of building the highest performance AI system with MI400 and Helios, what are the broader implications here?
Beyond just AMD's market share or stock price.
Right. How might their strategy, their technology actually shape the future of computing itself? Especially as pretty much every industry is trying to figure out how to leverage powerful AI infrastructure. What could this unlock or change for all of us?
That's a big question, something definitely worth pondering.